How many people are in leadership capacities today? Talking staff engineers, I'm talking managers, product leads, lead engineers. How many people are aspiring to get there? Trying to figure it out. Well, culture is one of the easiest ways because you become sticky. You become the glue that holds everything together. We're going to go through some methods around building strong engineering culture. And I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of coming in as a senior engineer all the way up to leadership, managers. Pretty much every job you've ever had, I've probably done it. All right, we're going to, what time are we actually at? All right. All right, 12:02, so the late people get to be late. All right, so hi, my name is Stacy Devino. I'm a principal engineer at Fanatics over the Fanatics app and ecosystem. So I touch every line of business that we deal in, and if you're kind of wondering what is Fanatics, well, we every time you bought a jersey, that was us. Every time you went to a stadium shop, that was us. Every time you went to Lids in the mall, that was us. Every time you bought Mitchell & Ness, that was us. We have a sports book, we have an iCasino, we have a collectibles division, top cards. Just about every name in collectibles has something to do with Fanatics. But that's not what I'm here to talk to you about, although I love what I do and I love my company, and I was definitely watching the NBA draft till midnight last night. Anybody else was there? No, maybe not. I'm a Dallas fan, and I had to watch Cooper Flagg just, thank God they didn't trade him. That's all I was just happy for. I just want him to be there. So, when I talk about strong engineering culture, I'm going to talk about it from the perspective, again, coming in as a senior engineer. I'm going to talk about how it was being a manager. I've spent time as a manager. I've been staff engineers. In fact, actually, the first time that I got principal added to my title as an engineer was over 10 years ago. I've gone back and forth. I've seen every perspective. There are things I love about certain positions. I've done everything from run a single team to running multiple teams, multiple tech stacks, and an entire domain of engineering. And now I make and sell shoes on the internet. So, I mean, we all have our passions in life, and I've kind of just been really lucky to discover mine. So, first off, you can only affect culture within your power to do so. And that does not mean that you have to be the person in charge. I said something about senior engineer, right? I was not the person in charge. But through creating a culture that valued what we delivered to customers, we were able to actually cut half the staff, do a full rewrite, and actually end up being so successful that it changed the entire brand of a household name, affected millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. And it started because I go, hey, why don't we try to do this? Why don't we try to do that? And then we showed it to the right people, and they go, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And then we involved them in the conversation. And that permeated, not just in my group, that permeated in web, that permeated everywhere else. And we all start going, wow, we should just do this. Let's make it Home Depot 2.0. I'm not saying that I did all the work. I'm not saying that I did all the sales points. But nailing certain things about what you value as a culture can actually change an entire company from a senior engineer. I'm also going to say that I came into a situation essentially as a manager and a tech lead, dangerous combo, running 4 different divisions because they had an average app rating of 2.3 stars across 80 different vendors. 80. Do you know how bad that has to be? That's 160 times bad because there's two different apps and they're both just as bad. On iOS and Android, within 9 months, 4.8 stars average on the actual stores across all 80 vendors as a SaaS company. They got a ton of awards. Those companies were very happy that their customers were happy, but it was about changing the culture that was building the applications, not the tech. In fact, we didn't even make a lot of technical changes. We really just focused in on what people actually cared about. And I made it a fun place to work. I put dumb little carpets. I gave people drinks. I invited everybody to come over and just hang out. We're going to get into why those things, those little things, really matter. That's why every fan company decided to do them. We talked about the Mexican Cokes earlier, which I think is kind of funny. But also, how do you build businesses that not just affect brands, but affect money? When I talk about that first example, that application doubled revenue every single year I was there. I can cite another example at another big company. We went from $550 million in demand to $3.1 billion in demand in 2 years. We're talking about really small teams. Really small teams. It's all about culture. So what can you do to affect your team's culture? If you got a really bad manager, one of those I had a really, really bad manager, epically bad. So bad I tell stories about it. We were still able to accomplish amazing things. But you're not going to change the CEO, and you're not going to change the core company culture unless you're the person within 1 or 2 ranks of that person, and you are absolutely hustling every day, and you fully believe in it. It's just not going to happen. So what can we focus on? You want to get roles, not talent. Every basketball team knows this. You cannot just hire the biggest names and the biggest stars and play them for the full 60 minutes. So what kind of roles do we usually think about? Who's the techspert? Who's the best programmer in the organization? Who's the best technical lead person? You want a newbie, right? If we think about these kind of like groups of 4, you want at least one newbie trying to figure things out, new person, whatever. And the utility guy. Probably just a regular engineer, maybe a senior engineer capable of a bunch of different things, moves in and out and around. And then we have the leader, right? The person who's kind of orchestrating everybody, who's really operating in that tech lead role, really actually ends up being a manager in a lot of ways, but not maybe in their personal career growth. But there are other players that really matter and roles that you need to fill that are way beyond these, that are just as important to your culture. Because none of these actually implies that they're part of your culture. So what do you need? You need ambition. Somebody on that team has to be striving for better. Personally, career-wise, whatever that motivation is, you've got to have somebody who's bringing ambition and fire into the equation. You got to have somebody who's solid. Every team needs a rock. Everybody needs a team member that no matter what you give them, as long as it's reasonable, they may not be the fastest, they may not be the best, but they get it done, and they get it done with quality. So you need somebody who's pushing forward and someone to ground you. You also need a designer. Someone who's really just focused in on pixel pushing, dropped frames, making sure the UI, the UX, everything really is what they expect. And you need glue. Not all leaders are glue. That's a really important factor. I was not the highest ranking person when I talked about that first example, but I was glue. I was sticky. You put me somewhere, I stuck there. I helped everyone I possibly could. I was flypaper. At some point you do get used up, but it takes a while. You got to find out who's the person who's going to be glue. Who's the person that's going to be and live and propagate the culture that you actually want your engineering team to have. And with that, I'm going to say top talent is crafted, not hired. We have to stop thinking that, oh, well, this guy passed the LEET code exam in 20 minutes, so for sure we got to hire that guy. Or, oh, but this person worked at this place, and those people are really smart. I'll tell you right now, I have teammates all over the country, and almost none of them have worked at a big name prior to this one. Because talent is crafted, not hired. They are all individually amazing people and amazingly capable. But you have to find the right situation, and you have to give them the right opportunities. And we're going to go into a lot of that. But how do we actually craft amazing, not just hire amazing? We want to maximize their progress. What does that start at with you as either a peer or as a leader? You can be both simultaneously, because you got to know people. As a person, you have to ask them and get to know them and meet everyone you possibly can. Know what their fears are, what they want out of life. God, what makes them happy? What are their hobbies? And connect with them. If they have a hobby, I talked about the NBA earlier, right? Watching the draft. What an amazing touch point to bring back into your next conversation. Oh man, I know you're really into this team. I saw the update. They had this. You can use that up or down, but it shows that you actually listen to them and that you're engaging with something that they love. And it isn't work. You didn't just blow straight into work. Because really what you want to do at the end of the day is build trust. Because you need to know what they want. You need to know what they want out of life. You need to know what they want out of their career, how they want to grow, what skill sets they want to grow in, what skill sets they want to grow out of, what roles they don't want to do anymore, what roles they do want to maybe look at the possibility of. Because it's really about knowing what they're good at and they're bad at. People will tell you a lot when you actually listen to them tell you what they want out of their life, what they want out of their career. That's a really good indicator. They're like, you know what? I really don't want to be a manager. Oh, why? I have a lot of communication issues. Or, you know what? I really don't want to take on that architecture problem. Why? Well, truth is, I never really kind of caught up on some of the coroutine stuff. It all starts with trust, and knowing people is how you build trust. No one on earth is going to tell someone that they're bad at something or they're good at something, really, until they trust you enough to know that you're going to use those decisions not to hurt them. You're going to use those decisions to make them better, because now you know how they operate as an individual. You know what they're good at, they're bad at, you know what skills need to be upped, you know how far you can push them, how far you can pull them back. And now you have the indicators, because they trust you enough to let you know when they're struggling. And you don't violate that trust. Because leaders need to be multimorphic. What do I say multimorphic? We all think about being mentors. I've been there, I've done that, these are my stories. Great. That sounds fun. I have a lot of mentors. They give me great advice. Advice is advice. It's informed pretty much by your own experiences, but it may not be informed by theirs. And so that's why you really need to be a coach. Let's be perfectly honest. If you were watching the NBA Finals, again, might be a reference for some folks and not. But OKC has probably the best lineup we've seen in the last 2 decades. They're absolutely going to have a legacy that's just astronomical. That happened because their entire leadership planned all these trades, all of these wins, all these draft picks 5, 10 years ago to set themselves up for greatness. And then on top of that, you can't also not acknowledge how amazing the Pacers are, because they have an A team and a B team, and the B team plays well, and they play as their own core. And they give relief to the A squad. And they can still hang. Because guess what? You need those legs. You can't be playing your best players all 60 minutes. I think the coach of the Knicks just discovered that, and he got fired. Right? Got fired. He was burning people out. Jalen Bronson, I was just watching that guy just... You watch the whole team just fall apart in the fourth quarter, right when it matters. Why? He didn't have backup players. He wouldn't play them. And, well, I mean, he did have great backup players. He just wouldn't play them. You got to play everybody. And that's part of being a coach. Knowing who you can play when, where, how you can push them, how you can't. Working with the resources you have, and setting yourself up to train some of the best people ever. I cited that earlier. You don't hire greatness, you build greatness, you craft it. SGA, Shai, but won best player in the league this year. He had the same starting year as Luka Doncic. I don't know, again, I'm throwing a bunch of NBA game stuff. You can tell I like basketball. Luka just got traded because he wouldn't put in the work. Long story short, unfortunately enough. He didn't match with the management. Everybody in the city loved him. I'm included. I have multiple jerseys. And he was an NBA All-Star for years, making an NBA All-Star. But he didn't put in the work. Guess what? He's not an MVP player. SGA just got MVP. There was no good reason that SGA should be better than Luka Doncic right now. But that's where we are because of great coaching and talent recognition, where other people traded him away. He was traded away. 4 years later, he's the best player in the league. What does that mean? It means you also need to be a peer. He wasn't just coached to greatness. He had peers that were hired specifically to train him, not just in the way that he needed to train in basketball, but how he needed to organize his life. He talks about the players on his team because they taught him, how do you spend your money? How do you spend your time? How do you prioritize your life? How do you prioritize the people in your life? How do you not let everybody just turn you into essentially their own personal bank account? That's the stuff you need to also be a peer on. Not that you need to cross that boundary, but be a resource, be a shoulder, be all those things. Because you really want good leaders. And good leaders recognize. They know what people are good at, they know what they're not. They cover. There is no good reason that you should run something up past if you can take care of it. Oh, I had to cover for so-and-so. STFU. It's part of the job. Part of the job is building trust. Part of the job is keeping trust. Part of that is covering. Hey, man, I know you've had a really tough day. Let me take care of that. You take care of you. I'll see you tomorrow. No reason. I hate it when people go into meetings. They're like, oh, well, I had to cover for so-and-so on Friday. Grow up. Distribute. Man, it's really hard when you're really good at stuff, isn't it? To distribute? Well, because you have to. You can't do everything, and you are going to limit your own growth by not being good at saying, oh, you know what? This might be a little bit of a struggle for them, but maybe if I can just be a supporting role, they'll be okay. And the other part of that is finding opportunities for the people you may not directly run. That means finding opportunities for peers. That means finding opportunities for people that, really aren't in your direct purview. Hey, you know what? I could totally run this project. And I know I could get everything done. But you know what? Maybe I can just make a text back and, hey, so-and-so, do you think it'd be a really good idea if we maybe see if we can get this other person to run the project? That literally happened this week. That happened this week. And while a little reluctant, he was like, yeah, this is my domain. Yeah, okay, I can take this on. I'm like, hey, that's awesome. Both of us will support you. And I want you to have that opportunity so that at the end of the year, at the end of the quarter, whatever, oh, you completed this project. You led this project. It saved this much money. It involved all these different domains of engineering. Wow, that looks like a big ticket item at the end of the year, doesn't it? You have to find opportunity for other people. At the same point in time, I'm distributing, because guess what? I don't have to run the project. I just have to support it. And part of that is growing people. You know why I said kind of, oh, okay, I guess I can take it. It's extra work. It's new kinds of growth. Even though totally equipped to take that job on and take that project on, it's uncomfortable. But, you know, you can convince people, right? We're all secretly in sales. And I did so with kindness. That was optional. If he said no, it was fine. I'm going to try to convince him not to say no. But if he said no, we had a way around it. Opportunity has to be grasped. It can't just be given. You're never going to have somebody who actually engages with it unless they feel like they took it and they own it. I like this quote a lot. Your personal core values define who you are, and a company's core values ultimately define the company's character and brand. For individuals, character is destiny. For organization, culture is destiny. And this is from the CEO of Zappos, who was famous for everything to do with serving shoes and serving customers. He didn't really even care about the product. He built an engineering culture and a company culture that was really all about customer service. So you got to define your values. I took a bit of a hit a number of years ago at this point. We were going to start a new project. iOS was way ahead, like a full month of hired ahead. But we started, and I was like, hey, we're going to take 2 weeks. We're not going to do anything. Anything. Not one line of code. I don't want to see anything from anybody. We're going to spend these 2 weeks. We're going to define our values. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to figure out our ways of working. And we're going to define our architecture, or at least the principles behind it, and at least make sure that we have certain core things we actually really care about. Fast forward a year, which app do you think's ahead? Fast forward 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It's the culture that defines the product outcome. So you need to figure out what you want to focus on. Are you going to focus on delivery, customers, revenue? What's going to be your guiding light? Balance. Hey, you know what? I love the work hard, play hard thing, but I'm a mom of a 3 and a 5-year-old. I got 8 hours. That's what I got. You work it in there, or you don't. But I'm working 8 hours. And because I carry that value, and other people carry that value, oh, I see it's after hours for you. Peace, buddy. Have a nice day. Ownership. Something goes wrong. Something goes bad. Something goes good. We're able to cite exactly who's responsible in a good way, in a positive way. We fail as a team, we win as a team, but we also can give people a pat on the back when they did the right thing. Respect. Kind of don't care what anything else about you is, what you look like, what religion you are, how you identify, any of that. It's all about the attitude you bring to work every day. And what's between your ears? Can you think critically? Can you be a decent person to work with? Really don't matter. Any other part of it. And that's a part of the value in the culture that I try to instill, but you got to figure out what that's going to be for your team. You got to figure out your mission, your product vision. Clear ideas of what you're going to do. What are you actually going to do? What's your mission? What's your OKRs? What's your thing you actually want to create? Why are you here? What is measurable success? Don't forget, at the end of the day, what are we hired to do? Solve problems and make money. Never forget that as part of your value system. But you also need to know the power of no. You are in charge of what you are willing and not willing to do. No one can tell you what you can't say no to. You are an individual. You always have that right of no. And too often, also, as a part of culture, we don't define when we can say no. When do we collectively say no? Not you as an individual, collectively, when we say no. Instead of saying what we go yes to all the time. Yes, sir, no, sir. Thank you, sir. We need to understand what we are not going to be willing to do when the times get tough or roads get hard. Because ultimately it all relates back to having that respect for everyone and setting those values early. Part of what you value is what you say no to. And that you only win as a team, right? Your wins individually don't happen because you individually are great. No app pretty much is written by one person. No team exists as just apps, right? There's a back end, there's a platform, there's infrastructure, there's login systems, there's security, there's IT. If you can't recognize that your success only happens because of other people, well, you're either conceited or an idiot, one of the two. Or both, could be both. But you only win as a team and you celebrate wins as a team. So you gotta have your goal, your client, your back end, your product, your content. They all have to be aligned. That is all part of your team. You are not an engineering team. You deliver a product. That is what customers know, that is what customers expect, and it is a culmination of all these things. If product and content are not part of your team, if they're not trained on everything that you do, content systems, CMSs, if you aren't building tools that make them great and able to do their job amazingly, you have a culture problem. Oh, it's us versus them. Nah, bro. It's all us. Because you need to understand what is their performance, right? Like accomplishments. You need project leads. You need support. You need to understand just like the indirect outside value that somebody brings and what they actually bring to the team. Look at code not just as a factor of like commits and review, but use it just as the same metric as what you would use in their accomplishments tab. What did they actually ship? What did they run? What did they actually make happen? Who did they support? And how did they distribute? Did they have outside impact? Did they actually work with product teams, marketing teams, content teams to get this thing out the door? Sometimes it's not even a technical solution. It's just being the guy who knows the information. Are they helpful? Do other people turn to them for help? Do they actually respond? Do they almost preemptively do so? And, you also got to look at what do they meet, exceed, don't on every part of what you consider in your company. But performance ebbs and flows. So kind of have this, there's like multiple versions of this graph. But you have productivity, disengagement, and overwhelming. So you have to give them enough that they're not overwhelmed, But we also don't want to like be so overly productive and focused on that that we burn people out. And everything's relative. Some people are really, really good and exceed in certain areas, and other people, you know, one thing can just kind of Lego pile down and crush the whole tower. And kind of with that, I'll say, I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. And with that, here's the slides, information for me, and thank you so much for coming here today. And I believe we have like 5 minutes for 10 minutes. How much? Okay, we have minutes for any questions that you have. Feel free to hit the mic in the middle. We can go a little deeper into metrics if you really want. Go for it, go for it.
This was awesome. Thanks so much. Could you speak?
Can you get a little closer? Sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
There
Can you speak a little more to how you go about defining those goals when you're starting that new project? I really like that idea of the pause to kind of huddle up beforehand. If you could, a little more detail, that'd be awesome.
So how do you define your goals? So sometimes it's something where you actually the whole team got put together specifically to build a certain product and all those kinds of things. But that's not really, like that's an end goal. That's not a step goal, right? So if you are a technical leader, a lot of times your job is actually to figure out what are the steps we need to accomplish in between. So when I said that, with that product I was working on where Android spent 2 weeks just figuring out stuff, right? Well, we had all different skill levels, and we didn't know how many people were going to be hired or not. So we actually spent, me and another person, the entire time figuring out, okay, how do we build an architecture that someone who has almost no Android experience can jump into and start to build out features and capabilities within a month? It's so crazy, like lofty goals, right? Like we definitely failed at various points along the way, but what we focused on were a few things. Really awesome build system. Even in the beginning, we made it so that iterative development always took less than 5 minutes for production builds. We're still at that today. And that any builds that we're running, actually live edit would work, like correctly. And so builds are often like 1 or 2 seconds. And so those things, okay, we're gonna focus on tooling. Wait, what? I hired you to build an app. Make me money. But core tooling, just like some of the folks that were up there, was a key metric to our ability to actually be successful. Because we didn't know who was going to get added to our team, and they needed to be able to ramp up fast, we knew that tooling was key for them to be able to do so. So how were we going to be able to build our app quickly and them to learn quickly? Well, they need to run stuff a bunch of times. That means good CI/CD pipelines. That means good build systems, so that they're just not kind of like mucking and miring. I mean, if you're in some of these tool chains like Python or sometimes Flutter, sometimes React, you're used to immediate responsiveness as to whether or not the thing you did just works. How do we bring one of them in, especially with the way that Android had worked in the past? And so what we did was we set iterative goals. So our goal actually was, our end goal was build a product. Our immediate goal, how do we build an architecture that can bring anybody in? And really taking that, build a product, and distilling it down to step 1. And knowing what we wanted to do at every other major iterative step, every milestone, that's what goal setting was. And I'll tell you what, when I said to my manager, actually the first thing we're going to do is do build tooling. He was like, wrong response. I was like, no, let me tell you why. And laid out the plan. This is what it's going to take. This is where your timeline ends. This is where it starts. You gave me 6 months to bring something to market. 6 months. Not even, actually. It was like 4.5. I just ate up 2 weeks. So, that's what it was. And guess what? We had stuff in people's hands 4.5 months later. Not crashing, running, figured stuff out. All that got met. You know what we did have? People who had never written a line of Android code get added to our team. Because we had planned for that, because we didn't know who we were going to get. And that's what good goal setting actually looks like.
So what you talked about for values, mission, and vision really resonated. I'm curious for the values, mission, and vision, where's a good starting point? Because I feel like you get people in a room and you can say, yes, this is the thing that we need to do, and it can just be paralysis, right? So you suggest coming in with hey, here's what I think, what is your input on that? How do you make that something that is, meaningful in a short amount of time to define that?
Because we spent all that time learning everything about each other. I knew exactly how you wanted to grow, the kind of code you like to write, the kind of features that mattered to you, the things that annoyed you, what you knew, what you didn't know, how leveled up you were in all these things. And actually, in some of those cases, we decided to make bold steps into areas we had never actually used, but we're like, man, I've been wanting to do it. And find the good justification to do it, instead of just copying and pasting something we'd already done before. And how do you do that? Well, it's really distribution based off of what are they inspired by, what are they good at, what are they bad at. I wasn't in the position at that point in time to be like, hey, you're really bad at this. Let's make you better. I got 4 months, buddy, right? I'm gonna make sure that you have all the work that you're awesome at and that you love, and that's gonna get you fired up, because this is an awkward situation. And that's what culture actually is caring enough as a leader to really just make it happy and wonderful to come to work every day, even if somebody else comes in and is just absolutely wants to ruin it. And that's all it is. Simple. Any other questions? Roll up, man.
Hey, just wanted to, piggyback off that last question.
Do you mind getting a little bit closer? This fan is ridiculously loud.
Yeah, no worries. I guess the big question is, how do you kind of sustain that culture from, you talked a lot in the beginning about focusing on what you can control. How do you sustain that culture from effectively people who are determining those timelines and being able to justify
how do you
that
sustain it and morph it to your needs, right? Because you end up in this
and also just justifying the 2 weeks of, hey, we're not going to actually produce anything because we want to kind of move faster.
To a certain degree, I knew they had a product they needed to get out in 4 months, so fire me if you want to. But a lot of it is asking people to trust you as much as you trust them, just straight out the guard, right? When I talk about culture, I think you got a little piece of it in some of the other discussions I've been a part of. And this is me. Everybody's different. But I kind of have a little bit of a high candor. But I try to mix it with compassion and kindness. Compassion being a conscious decision to understand your situation, and kindness as a framework for action. And candor can be kindness. I don't need to tell everybody above you that you have some sort of problem with XYZ, but I can go, hey buddy, in our one-on-one, I've noticed you had this little thing going on. Is there something I should be aware of, or do you want to actually just set some time and we kind of spend time learning this system? I want to be part of a culture is being that person who identifies those problems and makes those course corrections before it ever touches anybody else. I don't even care if you're outside of my direct purview. I do this with people across companies. I do this with people across organizations. Go, hey, I've noticed that you do this and you make these comments. Are you making those comments to other people? Stop. Right now. What you're saying right now is lacking perspective and it's coming off childish. And I hope that you're not telling this to other people. I understand that it might be our, us talking. But man, if I was that person and I heard that from somebody else, that would really make me feel bad. Have you thought about what that would mean to somebody else if they heard it? And those are important conversations. And the other part of it is I shoot the crap with everybody. I want a place that's casual where you can be absolutely who you are. And if I'm not there and those people don't want to be that, I'll leave. It's fine. It's just a workplace. I work for the people, and I love my company, but, it's a company. It's not a person. It's a sociopath with a paycheck. And that's part of the propagation, is you are ultimately responsible for being the person that you want to be, and by you actually living your values, and you living up to the values that you agreed on, that's a self-propagating culture. I don't take things on long hours because I don't want anybody in my team to think that that's okay. If somebody pings in a local channel, I literally DM them and go, hey, if this has to be taken care of right now, you ping me directly. You do not put it in the public channel. I don't want anybody else to get aware of this. I don't want them to think about it. It is after hours. It's not appropriate. It's what we agreed to. It's our culture. All right, I think we are at time. So thank you all so much, and I'll be around and ask questions.